Assalamu alaikum and welcome back as we continue to extract the beautiful lessons, life lessons from Surah Yusuf alayhi salam, which is taking us automatically to lesson number 12, which is super important because it's titled The Virtue of Patience. And when we discuss patience, it is one of those topics that we can't talk enough about. We can hear a topic on patience every single day, and we would still benefit about it, and we would still be reminding ourselves on how to be patient. Now, there is no doubt that this entire chapter of the Quran is centered around exercising immense patience in the face of trials and displaying a high level of forbearance. And I am sure you heard of the saying that patience is a virtue, and we believe that patience itself holds the keys to unlocking great virtues and rewards. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself says in the Quran, and Allah is with the patient, Allah ma'as sabirin. And in another verse, he declares that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that he loves the patient. He loves the patient. So understanding this concept that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with those that are patient and he loves those that are patient. The brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam made up a lie after leaving him in the water well and told their father this lie and said, "We went racing and we left Yusuf alayhi salam with our belongings, and a wolf came and devoured him." Upon hearing the news that his most beloved son Yusuf alayhi salam has now gone missing under a false pretense of being eaten by a wolf, Yaqub alayhi salam was left heartbroken and shaken. Even though Yaqub alayhi salam is a prophet of God and he accepts whatever comes his way, he was still heartbroken and saddened by what has just occurred. None can feel the pain of losing a child more than a parent. And myself, going through grievance with people as what I do with the community, I notice that many people have a difficult time losing a child. And to be honest, it is the toughest trial. As we know, death is the toughest of trials, but within that trial, there's different levels, and the toughest is for a parent to lose their child. Yet despite this overwhelming news, he stood firm and remained composed by his uttering of the words, a beautiful patience, a sabrun jameel. And this is something very important for us to understand, that knowing that the rest of his sons had betrayed his trust and caused harm to their own brother, Yaqub alayhi salam did not once complain, nor did he act irrationally or hastily. Instead, he demonstrated a truly beautiful patience, which is a patience without complaining about the situation and without responding in a negative manner. Now, this is patience. It is not a matter of that whatever you're going through isn't hard. It is hard, and that's why it is requiring patience. But true patience is when we are accepting of the fact of what just happened, understanding that nothing will happen without the will of Allah, and not to act in a way that's displeasing to Allah after you hear or go through what you're going through. So instead, he demonstrated a truly beautiful patience, which is a patience without complaining about the situation and without responding in a negative manner. And that's why we have to understand when we go through a hardship, not to overreact, not to be impulsive, not to even speak until our nerves are kind of calmed down, because it will take us to a reaction that we wish that we never acted upon. So he ended this statement with exclaiming that from God alone I seek help to bear what you are saying. So he's telling his sons that I am seeking help from Allah and Allah alone to help me bear with what you're saying to me. So this highlights his extreme reliance and his extreme trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And although he was distressed, he knew that it was God alone who could help him. It was only Allah that can bring that darkness, that can bring that light after experiencing a darkness. And after all, his own family had gone against him, and he was left completely alone in a vulnerable position. So Yusuf alayhi salam was left in a vulnerable position, and so was Yaqub alayhi salam, knowing the fact that this hardship came from their own family. So Yaqub alayhi salam's faith never deteriorated, and it was exactly this that got him through this truly testing time. It is our faith that takes us through these channels of life. It is our faith that helps us and allows us to stand up. So that's why we have to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why whatever difficulty that we are experiencing, we have to turn to Allah and allow that hardship to be given in His hands to help us through it. Now, every human being has a different level of tolerance and varying levels of patience. And patience is a key value we must work on. And to do this requires an understanding of the nature and the meaning of the word sabr, which is patience. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, patience is at the first stroke of calamity. Anyone could calm down after the fact. Everyone could understand that what just happened is not in our capability or in our hands to stop it. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, when he talked about patience, he said patience, true patience, is at the first stroke of calamity. When you first experience what it is that you experience. When you're first told the news of what just happened. So if we're going to work on patience, that's when we need to work on it. It's not when we're calm, cool, and collected, and then we realize that it's not in our hands anyway. No, it's to really have that tawakkul and that trust and that sabr with anything that comes your way, knowing that whatever came to you was not meant to avoid you. At this point, one can either completely break down and react without any thought, almost like a reflex, and or one can respond exactly like Yaqub alayhi salam. In fact, the linguistic definition of sabr in Arabic is to withhold. That's what sabr is. And which it is not to say one has to suffer in silence, but rather that this person withholds any negative feelings towards Allah and refrains from complaining about the hardship. SubhanAllah, this is something that me and you have to understand. That doesn't mean that we can't, feel any difficulty or hardship. When we go through hard things, they're difficult on us, they take a toll on us. They even have an emotional aspect of it. So we shouldn't suffer in silence. We should first and foremost turn to Allah, the one who is able to change our affairs, the one who is it is fully possible to make the impossible possible. So we should turn to Him. And then we should seek the proper help when we need help. But we have to understand we can't think negatively of Allah. We can't blame Allah. We can't blame other people. We just have to refrain from complaining and take that hardship and make it a means of strength for us. Now, though it is a very challenging and difficult process, this is not easy by no regard. A believer will always see the positives in every moment of difficulty. And our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said this, where he says, how amazing or strange, or even you'll find in narrations will say, how wondrous is the situation of a believer, that if good is done for them in everything, it applies only to a believer, that everything they see positive in it. This is only the case of a true believer, that if they experience any good, they are thankful and that is good for them. And if they experience any misfortune or difficulty, they are patient and that is good for them. To put it in the simplest terms, for believers, it is a win-win situation. It is a win-win situation. Even when we look at anything, whether it's pertaining to ourselves or the difficulties that we see all around the world, or even from those that are around us, we have to understand, if we truly believe and we understand that this life is a test and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us a fair share of eases and hardships to go through, and the battle of eases is to be humble and grateful, and the aspect of hardship is to be patient, turning and trusting in Allah, then it is a win-win situation. So the good that a believer is anticipating may not be clear at a particular moment in time, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always do what's best for His servants. Do you think that Yusuf alayhi salam understood being in the depths of the well? Or do you think that he could possibly see anything positive at that time when he was put in the well? No. Do you think Yaqub alayhi salam, even though he was kind of given like a little bit of a relief to his heart with getting the dream that Yusuf alayhi salam was expressing to him, do you think that he had any doubt that God wouldn't take care of him? But the mere fact that when he got the news that his beloved son is now not in his presence, you don't think that hurt him or made him sad? Of course. But sometimes we don't see the goodness in something in a particular moment in time, and that's why it requires patience. Sometimes the most valuable lessons are learned through the toughest of trials, and sometimes the most rewarding outcomes are gained through the hardest of conditions. So Yusuf alayhi salam and Yaqub alayhi salam were both soon to gain a small insight into exactly how God's plan would work out and how it would ultimately be in their favor over time. Please stay tuned and follow Shaded for more life lessons from Surah Yusuf alayhi salam. Jazakumullah kul khair, and thank you for your time, and I hope that you have a blessed day.